especially with our young men. And not just with our young men, but with our older men, that we need to see about trying to nip this thing in the bud. And when I say nip this thing in the bud, I think it's time, I think, I know it's time for us as a church to stop being worried about image and start worrying about the things that we need to be concerned about the most. I used to be a staunch defender in the image of the church, only for me to learn that God can defend his own image. The church, when it comes to doctrine, the doctrine in the Bible speaks for itself, so I don't have to defend that. And the reason why I say I don't have to defend it is because the truth is the truth, and you accept it or not. At the end of the day, my desire is just to simply live it. And as my aunt used to say, my Aunt Martha now is 98 years old. And she called me the other day. And Aunt Martha, she said, David, ma'am, you know, I was taught yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. By the way, it goes a long way. I had to teach my grandchildren. My grandchildren, Peanut, that boy, he knows when I call Peanut, sir, you good? Yes, sir. My granddaughter, his sister, Leah, huh? What you say, girl? and oh, family, I'm trying to tell you now, I keep it real. And so her mother, Mariah, my youngest, Mariah is like, girl, you know what to say. And so I'm like, well, we all are good. I just want to share this piece with you real quickly before we get into this thing, because Brother Kurt went to get something out of my bag. And I'll tell you what he's going to get out of my bag. Doc Epps, may I have my bag, please? Family, looked like a great big suitcase. Yeah. Thank you, Brother Kurt. Like I shared last night. Yeah. Oh, okay. Bless you. My children call Brother Kurt Uncle Brian. He's had them from way back when. From the time that we passed the Perrine, I've known Dr. Epps forever. Like I shared last night, we played them for the championship in conference basketball, and I'm saying this with my head down. We whipped them.
1 point. 1 point.
See, thank you. I heard somebody say it. All I know is a win's a win. But our relationship started from way back then. I would like to say to our family this. It's important that the young people in our churches and those who are coming up see us as family, because some of them don't have family. We're talking about this thing being a men's weekend. My father, in fact, my grandmother was born in 1896. My grandmother was born 33 years after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation. My grandmother, my grandfather, their parents came out of slavery. And so as a little boy running around, and I'm looking at my grandmother, she passed away when I was a little fella. But now I'm looking at my uncles and my aunt, and Uncle Raph is 93. Aunt Martha is 98. My dad, unfortunately, he passed away because he was helping one of our neighbors across the street pour some gasoline into the carburetor of an old truck. And our neighbor across the street didn't let my dad get out from up under the truck before he tried to start it, and it backfired and it set my dad on fire. And so, and I was pastoring down south. Well, nevertheless, and it cut his life short where he lost his cognitive ability. It was early onset of dementia that it just set some things up. And and I miss my dad now. My dad passed away a little bit over 2 years ago. And we sat there with my dad that day. And as I watched him, I share with my grandchildren all the time now, I miss my dad. Because if you ever had somebody to cover you, you know, when you need somebody to talk to that can tell you you're going to be all right, and somebody else can say it, but it's that person that is able to say to you because they've always been there for you. Even when I acted like I had lost my mind. And my dad, he did. I never forget, I was playing midget football, and my mother had left when I was 9. And so my dad put my football pants in the tub and sought to scrub them so that my pants would be clean when I went to play. We had a game rather than a scrimmage. And then I complained to my dad that my pants were not clean enough. And my dad didn't say anything. He put them back in the tub and went to scrub them some more. That's my dad. So that's what I tried to present to my children. But I was able to speak to some of our folk today, this evening at dinner. And I was sharing with them that there are some things that I have had to learn the hard way. And what I mean by the hard way, my marriage suffered because I was concerned about this. And my children suffered because I put this in front of them. And I'm just being honest. Can I be honest? Fam, can I be honest? I did. I was concerned about what people said. And then, as I share with you, that I have my oldest daughter, Chelsea. Chelsea came to live with us when she was 20. Chelsea originally was one of my members that I pastored at Tab. Chelsea and her sister Brittany. Chelsea and Brittany are Haitian. I would pick them up in the morning going to church. And they were, gifted musically. And when the girls sung, they helped me with praise and worship and some other things. Long story short, they were dealing with their mother. And their mom suffers from bipolar. Are we all together, family? And so it just so happened is that they got into a tussle one day, Brittany and her mom. And so Brittany went to go live with Chelsea. Chelsea was going to University of Miami. She had her own little apartment. Brittany went to start living with her sister. Then they decided to get another apartment. Long story short, they come one morning and said, we're going to go see about getting ourselves a different apartment. We're going to get some jobs. So they said, Pastor, just letting you know we're on our way. I asked him, I said, do you have any money? Do you have food in the house? Well, we're looking to get something. All right, check with me so that I can give you some money so that you go put some food in the house. Long story short, on the way to Vizcaya for a job interview, it started to rain. And a dump truck hydroplaned and came across the highway and hit them head on. The left side of Brittany was, all the organs on her left side were completely destroyed. And I got a phone call that morning, because I had been out playing golf early Friday morning, and then their sister called me and said, Pastor, Chelsea and Brittany had an accident. When they said they had an accident, I said, okay, that's fine. I said, where are they? They're at Memorial. Okay, so I started thinking they're around the corner from me. Only for me to get ready to go around the corner, and that's not the hospital. I said, they're not here. No, they're at the one in Hollywood. So I made my way around to the one in Hollywood, and as I'm looking to get onto the turnpike, The turnpike is blocked off. And I'm saying, there's been an accident on the turnpike. So now, a good friend of mine, he's passed away now, Eric Krieger, called me. And I said, hey, boss man. He said, hey, Prophet. He said, where you going? I said, the girls had an accident. I'm on my way to the hospital to go check on the girls. And then he said, what color car? And I said, red. He said, what kind? I said, Honda. He said, that's on the turnpike. That's bad. And so, because it was on the news, they shut the turnpike down. Little did I know, it's my girls. So now the hospital is busy calling me. And the hospital is calling me saying, Pastor P.A. Chelsea gave us your number. When you get here, let us know. We're going to direct you to a room. I've been in ministry long enough to know what that means. So when I get to the hospital and the person working at the desk, he asked me that he was in orientation. He says, I'm Pastor P.A. Okay, well, who you here to see? Chelsea Como. Oh, they're dead. So now the lady that's standing behind this gentleman says, hold on. Sir, I'm sorry. Sir, come with me. And that's when the lady informed me that Brittany had died. And I'm on my way now to go see Chelsea. And as I walk into another part of the hospital, down in the ER, Chelsea is in this room by herself, and her mother is sitting there with her, and her mother is continually calling Brittany's name loud. Brittany. And then after that, and so I'm looking at him saying, Mona. And Mona's like, she said, Pastor, she said, I'm Brittany. So after that, and then I look at Chelsea, I said, Chelsea. She said, hey, Pastor. I said, how you holding, baby? She said, I'm going to be all right. And then she says, Brittany is in surgery. So I said, okay. So now I know Chelsea doesn't know. So I don't say anything to Chelsea yet. So the hospital administrator says, can we go upstairs to the second floor? So we go up to the second floor. Mona is falling out in the floor. And we're having to pick her up, put her in a chair, and push her in a chair with caster wheels on it so that we can get her upstairs. And she's screaming Brittany's name all the way up. Long story short, up comes the income the state troopers. We like to meet with the family. Mona's no good. They said, Pastor, it's you. Sit down, I talk with them. I get their belongings that they took out of the car. I have their purses, and I'm sitting there. And then I go back into the room, and now they tell Mona that indeed Brittany has died. And now Mona can't help herself, and Mona is falling out. And then Mother Guerriere, their grandmother, is sitting there, and they're asking Mother Guerriere, who is their father? Because we need to contact him. Mother Guerriere says, Pastor P.A. is their father. And then they said, no, we need to know who their father is. Pastor P.A. is their father. No, we need to know who the biological father is. Pastor P.A. is their father. Because I'm the one that's present, not just that day. I'm the one that's present. If you understand what I'm saying. I'm talking about past, present, future. I'm present. And so later on, Chelsea's spending a number of days in the hospital. After Chelsea spends days in the hospital, we're busy making arrangements for Brittany's funeral, because I can tell you is that when it was time for me to tell Chelsea that Brittany was dead, because she and her sister were like this. And so now I'm having to say, so went downstairs and I said, Chelsea, I said, baby, Brittany is gone. And she began to cry. And then they said, do you all want to see Brittany? Yes. So Mother Guerriere, the grandmother, Mona, the mom, myself. We went to go around to go see Brittany. And we went to go see Brittany. Brittany, she was disrobed because of what they were trying to do to see if they can perform some life-saving measures. So now, as I step away from the table, as Mother Guerriere is lifting up the sheet, because I want my child to maintain her dignity even in death. So I step away so that there are things that I don't want to see because my child still needs her dignity. So now Mother Guerriere touches Brittany and she's saying, Brittany, in the name of Jesus, wake up, child. In the name of Jesus, wake up, child. In the name of Jesus, wake up, child. And I looked at Mother Guerriere and I said, Mother Guerriere, she will, but not today. That's what I told her. I said, she will, Mother Guerriere, but not today. And so now, Brittany, we're having to get ready to take care of funeral services. Chelsea goes to stay with her aunt, and when she goes to stay with her aunt because things are not well with her mom, I picked her from the hospital, carried her to her aunt's house, and now it's 11 o'clock at night and I'm asleep. The phone rings. It's the other aunt, Palo. Palo says to me, Pastor, I'm bringing Chelsea to you. What happened? The biological father, who had not been involved in their life for years, comes to see Chelsea, and before he comes to see her, he goes to see an attorney. So now, the mother and the father starts fighting in the front yard. The police are called. And by the way, I'm just telling you that this is what happened. So when the phone rings, Pastor, we're bringing it to you. We lived in the gated community. Gave them access to get in. I looked at Marva. I said, baby, I said, Chelsea's on her way to the house. This is what happened. Marva gets up out of the bed and she says, and she starts getting the guest room together. And Chelsea comes in with her aunt, and Chelsea just begins to live with us that way. It got to a point where I told Chelsea, we would sit up to 12 and 1 o'clock in the morning, and every night it was the same conversation. Why did my sister die and I live? So this is every night. You hear what I'm saying, family? This is every night. And I'm having to say the same thing every night. And I'm saying, Chelsea, and you can see she's dealing with survivor's guilt. It got to a point where, after a while, some months later, Chelsea, she went to go see her mom. And then I am now at the conference office, and I had come back to do some things at Tabernacle in Miami, the church that I have formerly pastored. And Chelsea is not the happiest with me. Well, no, Chelsea was of this opinion. When she would go around some of the members now, they would get quiet because she said, Dad, I could tell that there were some things they were saying about the family, and they just got quiet. And she said, Dad, and I said, Chelsea, now you just realizing what David and Mariah have to deal with, baby. I said, Pumpkin, you know, this is what happens with us in ministry. This is just it. And then Chelsea was like, and so after a while I could tell it troubled her some. So now I'm at Tab, and when I start talking about the family and I don't call Chelsea's name, Chelsea gets warm with me. So I'm trying to call her because now I'm saying to her, I said, Chelsea, baby, this is how these things are. So now she says, meet me on Pines Boulevard at this place to eat, because she stopped answering the phone because I want to know if she wanted to go somewhere with me. And she said, meet me at this little cafe on Pines. I said, okay, fine. So I met her at the little cafe on Pines. And then she looked at me and she said, you need to make up your mind. And I said, I need to make up my mind. She said, are you going to be my dad or are you going to be my pastor? And I looked at her and I said, I'm not the one with the issue. I told you what it was going to be like, that if we going to be this, if I'm going to be your dad and you're going to be my daughter, I told you what it was going to be like. I said, my question to you is not if I'm going to be your dad or going to be your pastor. The question is, do you want to be my daughter and can you handle what comes with it? And then she said, I can. I said, because I don't have an issue with you being my daughter. You're the one got to make up your mind. So she says, I want you to be my dad. I said, then you my daughter. I said, that everything that David and Mariah are entitled to, everything that comes to me now, all of my insurances and everything else, you are going to be a part of. And she said, Dad, I don't want something like that. I said, that's not what I said to you. As a father, this is what I do for my children. And then she said, okay. And so from that, that's how now when you see me sing, Brother Kerr, I have 3 children. Dr. Epps, I have 3 children. Everywhere I go, Brother Jacobs, I got 3 children. David, Mariah, Chelsea. And when I list them chronologically, Chelsea is the oldest. My oldest child is 40 years old. That's how old Chelsea is. David is 38. Mariah is 34. And let me say this real quickly about Mariah, because I told you she's the one that called and said, Daddy, you're going to be ready to kill me. You remember I shared that with you? Yeah. This is what happened. Want to talk about what God will do? So now, Mariah, after having not just one child, 2 children out of wedlock, 2 different daddies. Are you with me, family? Now I'm sitting there and I'm like, hey, no, we got a problem. Mariah stayed in there. I'm talking about she knew, and she came back and she apologized to her mother and myself, and she said, I'm sorry for what I have done, and I know you as my mother and my father taught me to do better. All right, shorty, we good. Now, Mariah goes back to school. And then Mariah not only goes back to school, now she is a lab away from completing her bachelor for nursing. COVID hits. And by the way, and she's doing this while she has 2 children that she's looking to provide for by herself. Now I sat there and I'm like, okay. Mariah, she said, Daddy, I can't get in the lab. So now she's working for Aging True. And if she's working for Aging True, which provides services for senior citizens, her boss is giving her all this different work to do. And she can't understand why. I'm talking about what God does, family. And when it does this, then after all this work, she gets a phone call from her advisor at UCF. The advisor at UCF says to Mariah, congratulations, you have satisfied the requirements for the degree of accounting. She took so much math in nursing, and then come to find out, her CFO was giving her all this work to do while she's on the job, not knowing that the CFO of her job and her advisor are putting this thing together so that she can do all this work while she's working, and then she qualifies as they sent her CFO sending the work back to UCF. And then turns around and says, we just like to say congratulations, you have satisfied the requirements for the degree in accounting. So now Mariah now applies to Cornell for a certificate program to be able, just in HR, to have a certificate. So now she applies to Cornell. She's in a certificate program. She has an advisor. The advisor sends her to another advisor, and it's a gentleman this time rather than a female. And as she is talking with the male advisor, he says to Mariah, I like how you think. I tell you what, this is what we're going to do. We're going to put you in the MBA program, and we're going to let you keep your certificate in HR so you can stay home and be able to do your work from home. That way you can still stay with your children, do your work at home, and work. So now I'm in California doing a week for a friend of mine, and then I get a text from Mariah saying, Daddy, God did it. And I'm like, and I'm doing like this, bro, Kerr. And I'm like, did what? Because she just texting. And I said, did what? And then I hit her back and said, what's up? She said, Daddy, God did it. God did it. I'm like, what's up? And then she says, Daddy, I thought I failed the test and I passed it. I thought that I didn't have this assignment in, this assignment in. Long story short, my baby has her MBA from an Ivy League school called Cornell. And when it was time for her to be hooded, we held the services at the church in Orlando because they only gave 2 tickets to be able to go to the services up there in New York. And then on top of it, it was on Sabbath. Mariah said, no, I want to celebrate with my family. So I've said all that to say this, is that family, don't give up on the babies. Okay, I say it again. Family, don't give up on the babies. Because what I have had to learn the hard way is that what we think, God has another way of making things happen. But this is what I want to say, because I've asked, where'd Dr. Wilson go? Dr. Wilson, I need you up this way, if you would, please, with me. Okay, now I need same illustration this morning. I don't see any of our young folk in here, though. No, because I ain't. All right. Brother Kerr, Sister Kerr.
You got a young one right there.
Sister Epps, Dr. Epps, I need y'all.
Young.
No.
He needs the young people.
Brother Kerr, Sister Kerr,
I'm the child.
Dr. Epps, Sister Epps. By the way, family, I was sitting up here laughing about this thing because it's the children on that side. That's what I'm saying, the children on that side, mom and dad are right here. Come on. Brother, Sister Kerr, you all right here. Can't you tell children who are disobedient? Family, I'm going to share with you all this what happened. When I had to learn this from my dad, because back in the day, before there was a Department of Family Children Services, and at one time, is it called Department of Family Children Services? They still call it HRS. What is it? It's still HRS? DCF? Okay, because see, in Georgia they call it DFACS, for Department of Family Children Services. And then we moved down here, they call it HRS. So, but nevertheless, before any of those, I'm gonna stand out here. Before any of those, before HRS, Department of Family Children Services existed, when there was a death in a community and there was an orphan child, it was the community that took those babies in. Okay, I'll say it again. It was the community that took those babies in. Can I get an amen? Am I correct? Because what happened is that when parents passed away, and we had young children, it was the community that took those babies in. I know because it happened with some of my aunts and uncles. It just so happened that their last name was P.A., and we didn't learn about this till later. All I knew was they were my uncles and my aunts. So now, with that being said, because I'm going to share something else with you again, is that here we have Daddy. Who do we have? And we have disobedient. Who do we have?
Brian Kerr Jr. You like that?
And the thing is this. We learn dysfunction. Are we all together, family? We learn dysfunction. I was sharing with some of our folk is that in communities, when there is a problem, when we have wrestled with mental illness, we were taught in our community, we don't talk about it. Let the church say amen. And we were told we don't go look for help for it. Let the church say amen. Am I correct? Am I correct? Thank you. Then, hey, help me preach this thing. So what happens is this, is that Jesus, help me. When I was coming up, and now I am married, and now I'm thinking that I got it all together. Only for me, don't y'all go nowhere. Disobedient. Just disobedient. And I thought that I was smarter than the average bear. And so now when I get married, not realizing that I am bringing my baggage in to my marriage because I'm still carrying this thing because I have a white mother and a black father, and I was not accepted in some areas. You with me? And so now, knowing that I have not been accepted in some areas, now there's some things that I start to make up within me to be able to try to handle this thing better than that. So when you saw me, you didn't see that. You saw what I was trying to make you see, that I was better than that. So now I'm sitting here and I'm married now. And while at the same time, my wife, who has been adopted, is wrestling with it because it's a family member that adopted her, is her grandparents. And her mother was alcoholic. Are you all with me? Her mom was alcoholic. And so now as her mom is alcoholic and not knowing what's going on in the family tree, I now am sitting here thinking that Marva is like this and fine. I'm going to say this thing again. That girl is this tall, and forgive me, that hammer is fine. That's how we would say it. That girl. But that's Marva P. And I'm thinking that this is what makes things work, while at the same time not knowing is that you're looking at the outer, you're not dealing with this piece and this piece. So now when certain things happen, because my strong personality is like this, I now am so strong in what I want you to see that I begin to overshadow Marva, and I'm so caught up in what the membership is thinking that I'm not allowing Marva to be Marva. Are you all with me? I'm just telling you what happened with me. And when I don't let Marva be Marva, and then I started to take away from her what helped her to help make me complete. And there were things that I was not willing to give because I didn't want Marva to see all of my vulnerabilities, so that in the event she got mad with me, she wouldn't know what buttons to push in order to hurt me, so I kept those things from her. And so now, me wanting to be the man and wanting her to see me as I wanted her to see me, rather than risk me allowing myself to be vulnerable to the person I should be vulnerable to. She saw me with no clothes on, but she didn't see my naked soul. And so now, here is our family. Here is me. Here is Marva. Here is David. Here's Mariah. And now I am so concerned about what the membership thinks about us is that I'm trying to shape them into what I want them to be rather than allowing God and them to work out their own soul salvation. And so, when I see my children now, and I see the mistakes that they have made, I realize now is that I'm responsible for some of this. This is men's conference, isn't it? This is men's conference, isn't it? And so, and all I'm doing is, I'm just giving you my story because, family, I'm done with trying to hide stuff and allowing families to be hurt because we would rather be comfortable in dysfunction rather than address this stuff. And so we want you to think of us as pastor. No, I want you to think of me as pastor, that I got it all together when I am in my prayer closet wrestling with God and saying, Lord, I got it all together. And God is saying, no, you don't. And so God is like, and Dave, and I'm trying to work this thing out of you, son. So now, this is what happens. I need a young lady can help me. So now, here comes Chelsea. Y'all say hey to Chelsea. And here comes Chelsea, and here is Marva saying, you bringing more work home. And then Chelsea is 20. And now Marva has some friends saying to her, how you going to let a 20-year-old in your house when you're supposed to know me better than that? Because this is, no, Marva, this is our child. No, that's your work. And so what happens now is that the family, rather than do this, we start to do a little bit more like this. Not David and Mariah and Chelsea, me and Marva. And now Marva has friends whispering in her ear about, Dave and that, is that good? While Marva doesn't know that some of her friends are trying to holler. And in fact, I give you this piece real quickly. I'm at a funeral. And we had just come out. And I'm standing there in the lobby. And this one particular beautiful young lady walks up and she says, hey, Pastor P. I said, hey. She said, are you on Facebook? Nope. I don't play on social media. Well, no, you need to be on Facebook. Nope. I said, I do not allow people to shoot at me. She said, no, she said, Pastor, I want to be your friend. And I said, no. I said, no, I don't play on social media. But you don't understand. I want to be your friend. Oh, family, let me tell you how I handle that piece. I said, I tell you what. All the friends that I have are the ones that I have from way back that I've learned if I can trust them or not. And I said, and establishing relationships take a long time. So I tell you what, let's just do this. when we see one another, let's just say, hey, how you doing? And we're going to call that thing a day. I say it because all my friends are the ones that I had from back here to where I am now. See, family, is one thing about the devil. The spirit of prophecy states that Satan attacks the pastor's family. And I'm saying to us is that this is just a microcosm of what happened with us. Because Satan does come and offer you opportunities. He opens the door. And like what we read this morning, is that he can't force us to sin, but he presents the opportunities. And so now, where we are now, and I'm going to say this to the men in this house, it's important that for us, we quit trying to fake it until we make it. It's important for us, if you love the woman that God has given to you, it's important for you that if you cherish that relationship, if you love that relationship, it's important that the one person that God has given to you in all the world where you can make yourself vulnerable, it's important that it's okay to allow yourself to start allowing God to peel those layers away, so that whether you have been married for 5 years or 25 years or 25 minutes, it's important that you allow yourself to become vulnerable to the person that God has given to you, because you're going to learn that no man is an island and no man stands alone. Now, I'm going to say this piece real quickly. This is what happened. Marva has alcoholism on her side of the tree. Are you all with me? Now, what's up, Marva? Your name Marva? I started to say, let the church say amen. Marva has alcoholism on her side of the tree. So now I'm sitting in a funeral service for who I thought was my oldest uncle. And so I'm sitting there, and we're in the Baptist church in Greensboro, North Carolina, because my uncle went to Institution Baptist Church on East Market Street. And I'm sitting there, and I'm sitting next to my Uncle David, who I'm named after. And next thing I know, I'm looking at the obituary. And then I see Willie was preceded in death by Rob. So I did my uncle like this. I looked at my Uncle D. Who's that? And my Uncle D looked at me, he said, he had a deep baritone voice. Oh boy, I'll tell you about that later. And I'm looking, I said, no, you're going to tell me now. And he's like, boy, I'll tell you later. So now, there are those in here who know my Uncle Rav. So Uncle Rav, he pastored up in Northeastern and then came down this way, but another story. So Uncle Rav, I go to him. Uncle Rav, who is this? Who is Rob? I thought Uncle Willie was the oldest. And Uncle Rav says, that's your Uncle Rob. Okay, how did he die? Uncle Rav says, he got quiet for a second. Dave, he drunk himself to death. He had alcohol problem. And I knew Uncle Willie liked to drink. So now I look at Uncle Rav, and I say, Uncle Rav, are you telling me we got alcoholism in our tree and you all didn't tell us anything? I said, do you know Marva got alcoholism on her side of the tree? I said, do you not know? And I'm looking at Uncle Rav. I said, Uncle Rav, if David and Mariah take a drink, they are more susceptible to this thing because this thing genetically is in our line. And Uncle Ralph looks at me, and I knew there are things that they were trying to allow us to be proud of, but you can't be proud of trying to hide stuff, and then when it does show up, we find ourselves in trouble. Because this is what happens. David tries it. And then he kept trying it. And now it's hard for him to stop. And see, and I'm not putting our family business out there. I'm just trying to help somebody. And so now David sits there, and David's like, and then he's like, Dad, it's a lot of stuff I used to do I don't do anymore. I said, I hear you, Big D. I said, I hear you. But the thing is, there's a reason why they call it spirits. There's a reason why it's called spirits. And that spirit is from the pit of hell. So I'm going to say to all of our family that love Ray and nephew, what? What's the matter? Talking about you got a cold. What? What, did I say something wrong? It's the important thing now is that as the men in our families, if you love your children, because this is what's going to happen. If he doesn't treat her right, he's going to see it, she's going to see it, she's going to see it. Because now, let me go back to Chelsea just real quick before I finish this thing. Chelsea said to me, Dad, if you and Miss P.A. can't make it, everybody in our family has been divorced. If you can't make it, who can? And that's what Chelsea came to, and she said, Dad, and I said, I hear what you're saying, baby. I said, I hear what you're saying, Chelsea. And now Mariah sits there and looks at her dad, and David looks at his dad. And now there are times, although Marva and I have not been together now since 2018, and before then, we were married for 32 years. And it would have been 40 by now. But I'm here to tell you is that you don't see me with anybody because I still love Marva for 32 years. And even in spite of all of this, I want my children to be able to see what's important. My dad refused to become involved with anybody else because he said his children matter to him more than him wanting other companionship. And I'm not saying it's the right thing for everybody. I'm just saying to you, family, what it is that I saw what happened with my dad. And I'm just saying to you is that I know this, is that this thing here speaks to this thing here. And as much as I may want to say that this cannot overrule this, there are times that this has to say to this, you need to chill out for a minute because you know what comes with all of that. So now, if David is going to be a good father, I have to continue to be a good father to him, even though I have messed up myself. And when I say messed up myself, I'm talking about I have not cheated. I have not done any of those things. I have made bad decisions in regards to trying to shape them rather than allowing them to be who they are. Same way with Mariah. She needs to see in her dad is that here is a good man, and she has a doctor right now that wants to marry her. And she continues to say to him, before you talk to me, you got to go talk to David Sr. And I have had to sit some brothers in front of me. And I'm just saying to you is that, yes, I am. I'm straight from the hood by God's grace. And when I say I'm from the hood, there's just certain things that are innately in me that it's this one boy came to the house. And I can tell you this, it was Malia's father. And so Mariah comes into town with his father. They came in from Huntsville. And I'll never forget, go ahead, sit down, I'll call you back. Bless you. And just disobedient. And so this what happens. Malia comes in, Malia's father comes in, and I ask them, where you staying? And Mariah says, at a hotel. This is what I did. I said, really? So I said, so you and him staying at a hotel? Yes, sir. All right, all your stuff in your room, take it, because when you walk out the door tonight, you need to have all your stuff with you. Huh? Yeah. See, because you don't get to do that in this house because you know better. So if that's what you're going to do, take all your stuff. Daddy, okay, I'm staying home. And then so now I says, and understand this because I carried her in my bedroom. Then the young man, I carried him to my office. You don't get to come in my bedroom. Carried him to my office, sat down, and I said, look, let me say this to you. First of all, you came in here wrong. He said, huh? I said, you came in here wrong. I said, son, you don't disrespect my house and then expect me to bless you. I said, that's not how we work around here. And then he looked at me, he says, and then he apologized. I said, now, let me just lay this down for you now. As long as you and Mariah, and you say you dated Mariah, if you ever put your hands on her, I said, I don't want you to think I'm coming. I said, Negro, no, I'm coming. I said, don't you ever, I'm just being honest. I said, don't you ever put your hands on my daughter. I said, because if you do, I will find you where you are. And that young man looked at me and said, yes, sir, Mr. PA. And so from that, and see, but at the same time, let me say this to you, ladies, because you all need to hear this piece. Don't expect something from us as your protectors, and you out here enabling a man to do some things, and you continue to stay with him. I'm going to say this thing again. See, because if you all are going to continue to stay with him, or if you're going to allow your daughters to stay with him and you know what's taking place, you are enabling that type of behavior to happen. So it is important that you all, ladies, if a man is putting his hands on you, ladies, I know as difficult as it may be, there are some things, and there are some, and it's not a thing of, Pastor, we have nowhere to go. And family, I'm well aware of it too. I'm well aware of it. Which brings me to this piece, and then after this, we're going to do this one last thing, and then if you have questions, I'll answer them, and then other than that, I'm going to take my seat. It was, there is a gentleman, when we made the bike ride, we rode bicycles from South Miami down by Goulds all the way up to Washington, D.C. We took the bike ride when Sean Taylor was killed. That's the time, Brother Kerr, we had Sean at Perrine, passing him. Sean passed away, Brother Jacobs. He was killed. He was playing for the Washington Redskins at the time, now the Washington Commanders. I was with Sean a month prior to up in D.C. This is the thing that sold it for me. Sean said, and I quote, he said, Pastor, he hugged me. And he said, Pastor, I know what it looks like, but I'm not far. And we sat there that night. We took that bike ride up to D.C., but these are the people that we were able to meet. We met individuals now who sat down with President Mack and myself and said, we are prepared to bring projects into Southeastern Conference. They sat on a board of wealthy people, and they said, I better not give you his name. He came to the office because his financial advisor who handles his money, we met him. He's not Adventist. We met him through the bike ride. He said, Pastor, they are prepared to allow you to have access to $140 million for projects that you have. He left that day after we had that conversation with that person that sat on that board. His financial advisor brought him back to the office a couple of months later, and he said, we talked. He said, I talked to my mentor. He said, my mentor owns. He said, you named a brand of jean, my mentor owns it. He's a 90-something-year-old Jewish gentleman, and he owns all brands of jeans. He said he owns it. He said after he looked at what we were talking about, he said this is what he prepared to do. Give you access to $400 million to be able to carry out projects. And I looked at the president after they left, and I said, he said, PA, we don't have enough projects in our field for $400 million. I said, no, let's carry it to the Black Caucus and let them have access to the same amount of money as well. And I said all this to say this, that same resources in place, and some of us don't have the vision in our churches to be prepared to put our shoulder to the plow. So when we have situations where ladies have nowhere to go, we should be able on our own properties have something set up in order to make that thing happen. And the resource is in place. I just got a text the other day from one church that is outside of the sisterhood of churches and said, we have 2 acres across the street and we're prepared to go ahead and build. And the person said to me the other day, he said, Pastor, let's go ahead and do one project so that my source can see that we're able to do this. And I'm going to make this offer to this church now. If this church is prepared to do something like that, I will bring that person, Brother Kerr, into this church if you all are prepared to put your shoulder to the plow and make that thing happen. Okay, I'll say it again. I will bring that person to this church so that you can sit down with him. So that, and let me say this real quickly. There are those who have vision and those who don't. These individuals, family, they are not Seventh-day Adventists, but they believe in us. So if this is something that this church wants to do, they got my number. You all have my number. Dr. Epps has my number. I will bring the individual here. And by the way, they live down here. And we'll bring them here, have a conversation with our folk, and if it's something that you all want to do, we'll make it happen. And all I'm saying is, because I'm looking in the faces of some of our folk and saying, Pastor, it's easy to say leave, but we have nowhere to go. Well, let's do this. We got the source. We have the funding. All you got to do is just simply have the vision and the place where you want to put it up, and we'll make it happen. Amen. I'll say it again, and we'll make it happen. When I was assistant to the president, I'm telling you now, when I was assistant to the president, when President Mack was alive, before President Mack passed away, we had a book full of letters of intent from those developers saying, this is what we're prepared to do, and this is what we will do. We will give the church a continuing stream of income that they put this up on their property. We will run these businesses from there, and we will allow them to be able to have a continuing stream of income so that they and their membership will be able to do anything that they want to do in ministry. When Mac died, by the way, let me ask you this real quickly. Who in here remembers Bernard King when he played for the New York Knicks?
Oh, yeah, I do.
Anybody remember Bernard King?
One of the best shooters, career shootout. Tennessee, Knicks, yeah.
This is what happened. We're up on the campground. We're on our campground. And we're having a conversation with the two individuals that can make it happen. As we're on the campground, this one brother, when he answers his phone, in fact, you all know BET? Yep. The television BET. You all ever seen Comic View on BET? You ever seen 106 in Park? Yep, used to be. This is what the situation is. The person that owns those shows is the person that came up and met us on the campground. When Viacom bought out BET, his share of paying him for his shows was $400 million. So now we're sitting up on our campground with that individual, and then his phone rings. He turns around and shows us his phone. It's Bernard King. Bernard is talking to Rodney. Rodney turns around and Rodney says, say hello to Pastor P.A. and say hello to President Mac. Hello? He says, hello from a Hall of Famer. Only to find out is that Bernard is working with Rodney because Bernard King's family raised Rodney and helped him in these endeavors. So I've said all that to say this. If you want it, it's available. It is. There are some of our churches, well, no, I'm not going to get into that's the politics of it. Here, let's do this real quick, and then we're going to go. Family, this is what happened this morning, and then I'm going to call this thing a day. This is what happened. We had one particular young lady, one particular mother. This particular mother, her mom called me. She says, my oldest just popped out baby number 7. When she says that her daughter just popped out baby number 7, only to find out is that the father, because I need Doc on this. The father has done this. The father of 4 of the children wants her to continue to have children until she has a male child for him. And in the state of Alabama, a red state, in order for her to have a tubal ligation, it has to have his permission in order for it to happen. And let me say this, and for those who want to know, I know in the state of Georgia, in order for a man to have a vasectomy, you have to carry your wife to that particular health care provider and say that you are in agreement in order for that to happen, because they will not perform the procedure. So now, because this particular young man wants to have a male child, this last child that they just had was born so big that you start talking about the baby being susceptible to diabetes and some other things. And Doc, I need you on this piece real quickly. What happens to a female's body as she continues to have child after child after child? And now she is becoming more and more susceptible to, I'm trying to remember how her mom put it. Her mom said that she got very sick after this last one. And I can't remember exactly what happened, but what happens to a young lady when she continues to have children like this? Now, I know some have had more than that, but she's having these issues. Can you share with us what the possibilities are when things like that are happening?
That's something specific to OB, which I am not an expert on. But I do know that having a lot of children when your body's breaking down is going to lead, obviously, to the lady succumbing to one of these childbirth. And sometimes, as men, we have certain things that we think we need to state ourselves as having a son, having a man, but we're not really taking into consideration that some of what happens is based on what the plan that God has for us. Sometimes it may not be a daughter that we need, a son that we need, it may be a daughter. But are we willing to put someone through a life altering and changing impact, which may eventually reach out to her succumbing? Because if she keeps getting worse and worse, it's not going to end well. So, what matters really to that person? They may really need counseling and to seek someone in obstetrics to really see what's the best option.
So, so I want to ask the church this question, because this particular young man that says that he wants to continue to have a male child, right now he is studying um, as a Hebrew. Yeah, you know, don't you? He's studying to be a Hebrew Israelite. And what is happening is that he's saying that it is against his own personal um, doctrine and philosophy for him that they are to continue to have children as long as they're able to procreate. And so I'm saying this to us, family. She gave me the ages of all 7 of these children. She had 3 from a gentleman prior, and all 3 of the ones that she had prior to marrying this other gentleman were all boys. And this young man has produced 4 girls, and he wants her to continue to have children until she produces. Well, unfortunately, they're not doing the math, because he's the one through, he's the one that is deciding. And I'm not, when I say deciding, I'm talking about through exchange of fluid. He's the one, he's the one deciding. And so all I'm saying to us, family, is this. Family, please be careful. Please, I'm asking you, please be careful. But family, I know it's been a long day. Is there any questions you have? Because I am, yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. I do know this. The mother stated, no, the grandmother stated to me this morning, the young man quoted this. The Bible says, be fruitful and multiply. So all I'm saying to us, family with your daughters, please be careful. Family, I want to say is that it's been a long day. I've enjoyed my time with you. I'm getting ready to make my way back south. Please keep I'm at my roommate's house. His wife, well, they on their way to my house in Orlando now. But she is having, she's taking treatments now. And she's taking chemo. And I'm saying, ladies, in your health, please, family, check. After I leave here tomorrow, I'm going down to eulogize one of my friends from Oakwood. He didn't go get checked. When he finally went to go get checked, he came down, they found him to have stage 4 pancreatic cancer. We're eulogizing him tomorrow. All I'm saying to us, family, is please take care of your health. And please take care of your mental health. Family, if you need some help, please go get it. At the end of the day, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Family, you all be blessed.
I think the pastor is finished, right? But he keeps going. But talking about his children, we want to thank. Let's give him a big round of applause, please, to show our appreciation. That's for you, Pastor, and thank you again. And we know tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, it's been a day, but tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, please come. Men, it's for men only. He's